doing it. It's women who see that as the only choice for the men they want to get with, because they don't need those beta men who are in that 28% right there. They don't need those guys anymore for provisioning, protection.
Wasn't this guy years ago crying about how a lot of beta men were used for their provisioning, and now he's mad at women not using them for that? Wasn't he like, you guys are just beta providers and they're just using you? And now he's like, they're not even using the beta providers. Like, this guy literally just talks out of both sides of his mouth repeatedly. Like, it's crazy. When it comes on the man's side, you want to sit there and say, hey, ladies, you shouldn't just be okay with him having options. You should be okay and understand that he should be able to exercise those options. But then from the woman's side, he wants to express anger about how that they're okay with sharing these top guys. Do you see what I'm saying? This is him literally playing both sides of the coin. Yo, what is happening, YouTube? It's your boy Bolo, and I'm coming to you with another video for educational purposes only. So I want to address this video made by Rolo Tomato, aka Rolo Tomassi. First and foremost, guys, this is not a gender war channel. I'm not for the back and forth, the bickering, and the pointing fingers at women for two reasons. One, they're not my competition. I feel like we should be their leaders, and right now we are failing them in that. But we have, mainly because we have men like this with a big microphone. He is not a leader, he is a chronic complainer, which is a very feminine characteristic, and too many men are following his lead. So I'm going to point out in this video, one, him being a massive grifter, two, him being a man of no solutions. And if all you have are complaints and no solutions, and you have men following you, all you're doing is fostering hatred and anger at the demographic that you are saying is doing this to you. He's removing all autonomy. I will only go through about the first 8 to 10 minutes of this, because the second half, or the last third of it, is basically him saying what he said the first part, just with different studies. So it's really pointless, and I don't want this to be too long-winded. But let's get on with the video, and I'm gonna be blunt. Like I said, this is not a man versus woman thing. I'm gonna be blunt about men and women.
The Washington Post posted these studies a long time ago. You show them sometimes these graphs. One of them is 28% of men showing zero sexual partners between the time
GSS studies.
Yeah, the GSS studies. Can we go over some of those? Because I show these to women and they're just like, I don't understand. What are you talking about? Every guy I know is a whore. Every guy I know fucks.
Get all of them. Make sure you got all of them.
What are you talking about? The fucking VIP host I had sex with, he hasn't had 7 sexual partners. He's had 700. What are you talking about? And I'm like, hey, did you look at the guy who gave you your hamburger at Wendy's? Who's fucking him? Did you look at the...
Who's his soulmate?
Who's his soulmate? Did you look at the person, the cashier at Walmart? Would you have had sex with him? No, not only would...
First and foremost, who the fuck cares, fellas? It's not on the woman to notice you. It's on you to make yourself noticeable to the woman. That's first and foremost. They don't owe you attention. They don't owe you a pity fuck, because that's what this sounds like. It sounds like a plea for some pity sex. Because if you have an answer for me, let me know. But what is the point of showing women 20% of men aren't having sex? Really, what is the point? Really? Like, do you think they're gonna turn around and say, Jimmy, I heard you haven't had sex this year. Let me jump on your pole. Like, no. So what is the point besides trying to look like a pathetic, pitiful bastard? Okay, that's first. Second, what's wrong with them not wanting to fuck the lowest guy on the totem pole? Honestly. And I've worked at the bottom. I still sometimes have to work at the bottom of certain places. It is what it is. I understand, like, look, I'm not the most desirable candidate here, at least as far as occupation goes. Now, physically, my body's above average, you know, so I can kind of get ahead with that. You know, I'm charming and have other qualities that women look for, but let's be honest, going for a woman is almost like a job interview. The worse of a woman, the less qualifications you need. Okay, if you're trying to work at McDonald's, they'll take someone off the street. You could have fucking had armed robbery cases and they'll take you. But if you want to work at Google, if you want to work at Microsoft or BlackRock or something like that, you're gonna have to show some pretty high qualifications. Okay, because that's what these guys are talking about. They're talking about the hot girl. They're talking about the hot girl because if we're gonna be 1,000% honest here, there's a lot of cute girls that where you work at that you ignore. You're like, yeah, she's kind of cute, but she could probably lose 15 pounds. And you're sitting there going, eh. And then you're looking at the hot one that works, you know, that comes to your sandwich shop every day. You're like, golly, wow. You ain't got no shot with her, pal. And it is what it is. You gotta improve or, you know, whatever.
Would you not have had sex with him? You didn't notice he existed. So when I show you this whole thing, 28% of men having 0 sexual partners in the last year, and you don't believe it, these 28% of men, you legitimately don't recognize they exist. You wonder where Andrew Tate came from? It's because you ignored that they existed. Let's say everything Andrew Tate said is wrong and everything Red Pill is wrong. Let's just play devil's advocate. All of it's wrong. You think that these people just don't exist? You're gonna wave your hand as a feminist and be like, well, fuck you, I don't agree with your opinion, therefore you disappear?
First off, it has nothing to do with feminism. This is a thing that's will always happen, has always happened, and will never stop. It's biology. If you Google how many men percentage-wise have procreated throughout human history, they say only about 40% of men have procreated. So men not having sex isn't some new thing. It's not even close. It's basically the norm. Humans in general, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, you want better. If you're driving a beat up Honda and someone comes to you and says, hey, I'll give you this Jaguar or this Mercedes, you're gonna trade in that fucking beat up Honda and say, oh wow, that's what you're gonna do. I don't see people really playing PlayStation 2 anymore. You know why? Because people want PS5s. And people with PS4s are like, yeah, I like my PS4, but I'd really like a PS5. So you're mad at women. And let's just be honest. If you work at one of these fast food places, this is not a knock on you, and I'm not saying this is you specifically, but if we're gonna be 100% honest, when I used to go to these places, I can't recall going, whoa, this guy's I know this guy's getting some ass. Like, most guys in these jobs aren't gonna be 6'4" units. You know, they're not. Most of them are overweight or skinny, fat, average looking dudes. And you're mad that these hot bitches aren't trying to fuck them or give them attention or whatever the fuck it is. Of course not. Of course not. And if you were a woman, you wouldn't fuck them either. Let's be honest.
Do you think they disappeared? Do you think that they don't have internet access? Do you think that they don't vote? They have no economic guidance whatsoever. Do you think that they don't have feelings, that they don't have testosterone, they don't have muscles, they don't have the ability to work, the ability to type?
Sounds a lot like female solipsism, doesn't it?
Here's Mr. Pitiful himself right here, the biggest crybaby in the fucking red pill community.
I mean, it's just a situation where, like, you have to admit that they existed. Now, let's go.
No, they don't. I'm gonna give y'all another truth bomb. Something that we all know is true, and we've noticed this. If you're a guy that gets even a little bit of attention, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I get mad attention from girls, but I get a decent amount, more than I would say your average guy. A lot of the guys that don't always get noticed, or they're not the most physically attractive guys, when a girl does show them positive feedback, and I'm not talking sexual, I mean like just being a nice person, like, hi, how are you doing? A lot of those guys all of a sudden take it as she's interested. I've seen that more than enough. That's not a blip on the radar. That's not a rare thing. I've seen that a lot where I'm like, bruh, she's like that with everyone. She ain't into you like that. And the guy's like, yeah, but did you see how she smiled at me? Like, no, she's just being a nice person. So there is a reason why women can't be too friendly. It's because a lot of guys take it the wrong fucking way. Okay, so let's just be honest about that. It's like, you don't even notice these guys. Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of times when these guys get noticed, they take it as like a sign that she's interested.
What were these studies specifically? The one had to do with virginity, 27% of men. What was that? It was like between the 18 and 30. What was, do you remember those studies?
Okay, so so the study was between, I want to say it was 2008 and 2018.
Yeah.
So, and it was part of the General Survey Study, which is like an American, so this is the United States here, okay? And it corresponds with the census at the time as well. So they take that every 10 years, as we know. So the stats basically show this is that it was like 28% of men between 2008 and 2018 are literally having no sex, zero. Like,
Okay, and now what? See, all he does is complain. There hasn't been a solution suggested by him on how these guys could change. It's like, look at this. Life isn't fair. Look at these women.
no sexual partners, and it has astronomically risen since about 2010.
Well, 2007 is when you first see the hockey stick spike, and that is the year that the Facebook app was introduced to the iPhone.
It's also the year when white women started taking antidepressants
Okay, let's just be honest about this thing. I guarantee if antidepressants were a thing back in the 1800s, these women would be on it just as much, if not more. Especially your average woman. Do you know the standard of living people were having to deal with back in those days? You think those women wouldn't be popping antidepressants if they were a thing? So like this stat is kind of misleading. Now I'm not doubting that it might be a little bit more prevalent than in previous decades, but were they always covered by insurance? How readily available were they? What were the red tape to get them? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of other factors here that could play a factor in why it's increased. But part of it might be that they're more depressed. But I doubt, 100 years ago, women were all just jumping around for joy. I'm pretty sure if they could pop them pills, they would have been also.
Astronomical numbers as well. If you look at the spike of that, and what I've done, by the way, I have used that. Everybody in the manosphere has used that.
Yeah.
That.
Also, women are just, honestly, this is not scientifically backed. This is just me. I think them being depressed is almost like biology. Their mood swings, they're always up and down. Depression, I think, is literally part of their DNA. Okay, I don't think there's ever gonna be a point in time that if they had these pills available, that they wouldn't have taken them. Okay, even the women in the most, perfect of marriages, the guys, they got a 2-car garage, the white picket fence, 2-3 kids, none of them are, degenerates, they don't go to school, they're all got high graves, they got the dog, they go on vacation to a nice island every year. A lot of those women are still popping pills, bro. They're still popping pills. So let's stop acting like all of a sudden, if these women that are out here popping antidepressants, if they were to go fuck the Walmart guy, that their depression would be cured. Because that's what he's insinuating. It's like, look, you're not having sex with this 28% of men, and look at that. You're also popping antidepressants. Like, yeah, this 5'7" skinny dude that works at Subways, giving me that 3 minutes of pleasure, that's gonna cure my depression, Rolo. Yeah. This dude's a fucking joke.
That stat. But what they don't do, that's one data point.
Yeah.
Okay? You have to take those data points and you have to correlate them with other data points. So even from the same study, you can see that, and that's just 18 to 29. If you go and you look past 29 up until 45, men are still having less sex, even in those other demographics. We don't care, once you're past the 29 demographic, who gives a shit, right?
Nigga, I don't care, 18 to 29, 19 to 59, I don't give a fuck. If you're not getting sex, it's because you are less desirable than the guys that are. It is what it is, man. If you're that mad, if you're that pressed over sex, bro, make yourself better. Or lower your standards. Because like I said, a lot of these dudes are overlooking girls at their job or that they're in close proximity with that aren't, exactly the hottest girl. Just like they're not the hottest guy and they're overlooked by the hot girls. Those girls are overlooked by a lot of men also. I see it. Where I work, I work with a lot of women, and there's a fucking pecking order. There's like 2 or 3 that get like almost all the attention. Then there's another 2 or 3 tertiary, girls that get some of the, they get some of the runoff attention. Then there are like 2 or 3 at the bottom that aren't even ugly. But compared to those other ones, they get no attention because they don't compare with them. So women go through this too, to a degree.
Right. But we see that, and we see that astronomical spike because those ones are the people those are the guys who are going to have the Arab Spring, right? But then when you look at women and you see that it's jumped just a little bit. They're having less sex, but not nearly as much as like young men between the same demographic cohort, right? So when you look at that, how do we correlate, or how do we interpret that one data point? I interpret it as this, is that we have, of course, we're, in a social media environment right now. We're in a sexual marketplace that is globalized sexual marketplace. We can literally see statistically hypergamy right there. Okay, so what happens is, it depends on what your ideological bent is. So when I have heard like Matt Walsh or PragerU report these exact same numbers, you know what they're saying? Oh, it's because young women are fucking older guys. It's because...
That's definitely part of it. I work at a restaurant, a high-end one, and I see every day, literally every day, multiple instances of young women in their, mid-20s, I would say most of them are in their 20s, sometimes early 30s, but they're all fucking hot. And they're with older dudes in their mid-50s, late 40s, early 50s, mid-50s, all the time, sometimes with kids fully married. A lot of times I would say it's just on dates or whatever, but some dudes are getting ass, They look like they were dudes like if it was 20 years ago, they'd be slaying all kinds of ass, you know what I'm saying? But, they just happen to get a little older, but they still have, that swag about them, you know what I'm saying? You could just tell they know how to sweet talk women still, but this guy's got no game, no physical appeal. He comes across as very feminine with all his crybaby shit, like...
Because they're having sex with older men who are more made, and they're more mature and whatever. And what that does is it feeds into the personal responsibility grift that they all promote.
First and foremost, that's how we were to actually get out of this predicament that society's in, fellas, is personal responsibility. I always hear about how men are the leaders of society and we're logical and this and that and blah, blah, blah. So it's on us to change everything or to not allow this to keep going. But he's now saying that personal responsibility is a grift. Okay, we are only as strong as our weakest link. And unfortunately, we have a lot of weak links as men. And I'll put it to you this way, it's pretty easy. If you have 2 parents, right? And you have like 3 children in the household. Now you've got one parent, let's just say, for instance, the guy, is like, make sure that the kids have, their homework done. You can't watch TV until you get the homework done, until you eat dinner, blah, 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 until you clean up your room, all that shit, right? That's the man standard. But now, his wife, every time the kids, don't want to finish dinner, or they don't want, they didn't finish cleaning their room or finish their homework, they're like, Mom, but I want to watch TV. And the mom says, okay. All the good things that guy is trying to instill gets thrown out the window. And unfortunately, as men, we have a lot of that going on. You have a very small minority of men that have high moral standards and that are sticking to them. You have a lot of men that when women want to have partake in bad behavior, they'll put up with it for some crumbs of pussy. That's a fact, okay? That's a fact. We have a lot of men that are willing to let anything happen or let that girl get away with anything because of just the prospect of possibly having sex.
So it's like, well, if men would just take more responsibility and get off their asses and start being, better, then women would be better and you'd be getting laid, right? No. Women are sharing the hot alphas is what the fuck they're doing.
You see his rage. This guy is fucking angry. First off, this is probably the biggest example of him grifting right here, because you see how you can tell he really feels this way. You could tell he really feels this way. Let's just rewind that.
And start being, better, then women would be better and you'd be getting laid, right? No. Women are sharing the hot alphas is what the fuck they're doing.
Okay, so obviously with the anger that he says that with, he's insinuating that this is negative on their part, right? Pretty safe to assume. He's like, look, no, they're actually sharing all the alphas. But he'll be on Fresh and Fit, who I think sometimes can be cornballs, but I would definitely say that they're better than he is because at least they try to come with solutions for guys. But he'll be on their show and agree with something that I agree with that they say, is that those guys at the top work very hard to be charming, funny, keep their body in shape, be successful, all these things. And they say, look, those guys are gonna have a lot more options and you should be okay with them exercising those options as long as you're the main one, right? And I agree with that. Those guys are gonna get a lot more attention from women, and for what they're supplying the woman as opposed to what they're getting back, they should be allowed to, as long as they don't embarrass her, step out. And he'll agree with that. So when it comes on the man's side, you want to sit there and say, hey ladies, you shouldn't just be okay with him having options. You should be okay and understand that he should be able to exercise those options. But then from the woman's side, he wants to express anger about how that they're okay with sharing these top guys. Do you see what I'm saying? This is him literally playing both sides of the coin.
How about we talk about that? You'll never hear that from Dennis Prager. You will never hear that from Daily Wire. You will never have that correlation made because it is unflattering to the female nature, and we all think that to solve men's problems is to pile on more and more.
Nigga, it's on you to solve your problems, not anyone else. This is him right here, absolving himself and men of all responsibility from what happens to them. As far as I'm concerned, if you blame anything on a woman, you might as well say your kid made you do it. Because how is she making you do anything? Is she able to beat you up physically and make you do anything? No. And if you are getting beat up by a woman, you definitely have no backbone. No offense to any guys that have, suffered abuse or whatever. Unless she's using a weapon, you have no excuse. You have no fucking excuse. Okay?
Responsibility for those guys without having any authority in that as it is, but still it points a really ugly finger at hypergamy being true. Here it is right here. It's not that these women want to fuck old dudes on yachts. They're fucking guys and they're sharing that guy.
Yeah.
So
and you say and agree on Fresh and Fit that those guys should be able to share those women. So why are you complaining now? Why are you complaining now? You always say how those guys deserve that.
Where and I made this point before. We were talking about promiscuity, and that's where I did the show on Tim Burkhead's book, and I talked about this. I said we're at a stage right now in society where women don't need men. They'll say this, "Oh, sure, I don't need no man. I make my own money. I'm walk like the boss, talk like the boss," and they're very proud and very it's hubris is what it is.
I would agree with that. They do need men indirectly, in their day-to-day lives for the most part. And I would say it's hubris. I would agree. So he's right on that one.
They get to that point and they say, I don't need no man, but I want a man. Okay, what kind of man do you want? I want the guy who looks like Andrew Tate. I want the guy who looks like Jason Momoa. I want the guy who's going to give me the highest, hottest fucking sex I can get, who is the apex alpha, and hopefully I'll be able to lock him down.
And what's wrong with that? Seriously, what's wrong with that? As guys, we want the hottest girl we could possibly get, right? So this is right now, this is his pitch right here, his sales pitch. Not only should you fuck a broke guy, but you should fuck a broke guy that's not attractive, socially awkward, not funny or charming, and the sex is whack. That's what he's trying to tell these women to do. Like, no. Why are you fucking the Jason Momoa types that are tall, successful, handsome, and give you good sex? No. You know what'll cure that depression? This whack little guy that's petrified to talk to you in the corner with no kind of physical presence. He's awkward, stares at you weirdly, and makes no money. You need to fuck him, because if you do, you'll stop popping those antidepressants, miss. Come on, bro. Like, seriously. This dude is ridiculous.
But if I can't, I'm more than willing to share that guy, either directly or indirectly, whether I cop to it or I don't. And so what you're seeing right now is you're seeing a reversal and a sort of a return to polygamy, but it's not men that are doing it. It's women who see that as the only choice for the men they want to get with, because they don't need those beta men who are in that 28% right there. They don't need those guys anymore for provisioning, protection.
Wasn't this guy years ago crying about how a lot of beta men were used for their provisioning, and now he's mad at women not using them for that? Wasn't he like, you guys are just beta providers and they're just using you? And now he's like, they're not even using the beta providers. Like, this guy literally just talks out of both sides of his mouth repeatedly. Like, it's crazy.
Or parental investment, because either they've got a college degree, they've got a business degree, they've got a business themselves, they've pretty much settled, or perceptually, they've settled the idea that I don't need a man for the beta buck side of hypergamy. So the only thing that's left is fucking Jason Momoa and the Cannon Party.
So let's talk about this. Women are always shocked whenever I bring this up, right? The average North American male has had 7 sexual partners in his entire life. So let's look at this from a statistical standpoint. We know that first 28% of men are at 0, right? And then when we get to the average, the mean, we're at 7. So let's keep graphing this out. Now we're at 7. Let's just say this top 60th percentile, we have had 7 sexual partners. Once we get to the 80th percentile, we're talking 400 sexual partners. Once we get to the 90th percentile, we're talking about like Bilzerian, we're talking about 1,400, 1,500 sexual partners. For men, it looks like a hockey stick. It literally goes like flat, and then it's a little bit, and then once you get above this certain style where you're like in the top 10% of earners, you're good looking, whatever, the number of sexual partners happens. I'm not trying to be an asshole, and I'm not trying to be arrogant. Let me tell you from firsthand experience, this is absolutely true, because I've been on both sides of the scale. It's not, you don't have a few more partners. It is unbelievably, it's 10-to-1 difference. So when you see this spike that happens, I don't blame women for this. I understand.
First and foremost, before he gets to his next point, those guys, when the hockey sticks take place, they deserve that. They did something that you weren't willing to put yourself in a position to do, therefore they deserve more. If you study for your exams and get hundreds and get A's on your classes, you're gonna go to a better college. If you decide to skate on by, not study, not do your homework, not care about your tests, you're probably not gonna go to a college or as good, and that's what you deserve. Most of the times in life, you get what you deserve because you usually get back what you put in. So first and foremost, those guys deserve that. 2, most dudes can't handle a bunch of women. Okay, that's something that motherfuckers do not want to talk about. That is something guys do not want to talk about in the red pill community. They talk about how the alphas are banging all these girls, but let's talk about the real. Most of the guys at the bottom can't handle multiple women anyway. Not financially, not emotionally, not mentally, not physically. Most of these guys can't please one woman. And you're gonna tell me we're gonna divvy up all these chicks, amongst the men? Like, bro, these guys are literally killing themselves over one girl banging another dude. Or they're shooting up a hole, whatever, because this girl won't text them back or she moved on. Okay, so mentally, these guys can't handle more than one woman. Physically, they can, because most guys can't even please one. Okay? So stop talking about, all these guys are banging all these girls. Well, yeah, they can handle it, and most men can't. That's just a fact.
Saying what happens is, let's look at Amazon. Remember back in 1985, we would go to the hardware store for our hardware. We would go to the diaper store. We would go to a different store. We'd go to the nursery for our plant shit. We would go to different stores for different things.
And go to Blockbuster for our videos.
Blockbuster for our videos. Now we go to Amazon for everything. So we see how the internet globalized purchasing. Now we almost all go to one place for all of our shit. Why do you think that was going to happen any differently with dating? Of course, it's the same thing. Okay, I'm telling you, I was talking to Bilzerian, he said like something like 50% of the women he's been with are in relationships.
Let's not gloss over that. Dan Bilzerian, I don't care about how much money he has, how much guns he has, how many women he sleeps with. He's a weak link. Like I said in previous videos, you cannot give positive reinforcement to negative behavior and expect that behavior to change. Okay, so this guy is a huge part of the problem. It's one thing banging 5 women that aren't in relationships, and then there's women that are taken and you taking them on. That's a huge issue, because now, I mean, you can't complain about women cheating but then be the person they cheat with, or, you know, give them that place. For instance, you know, like this guy, he bangs this girl, right? And she is now seeing a positive feedback from it, and positive outcome. Like, wow, so I can have my guy at home, but I can also go and enjoy this exciting life for a couple hours while I bang this guy. You know, she's telling her friends about this. So not only is Dan Bilzerian wrecking one home, he is possibly wrecking multiple, because now she's gonna tell her friends about the great time she just had with this dude, and they might be in relationships, and they're gonna be thinking, wow, you're living this exciting life and nothing bad is happening. You get to go home with your mouth full of jizz and fuck and kiss your husband or boyfriend in the mouth. Wow, I should do that because now they feel like they can get away with it. So this is where the personal responsibility kicks in. If men as a whole moved according to a high standard, these women wouldn't be doing these things. But you have too many weak-willed men like this Dan Bilzerian dude, with all the single women in the world. He's out here fucking taking women. That's some scumbag shit.
Currently in relationships when they have sex with them. Like this idea that, like, it really is like what you said before. There is this group of men at the top that are having all the sexual access, and then there's this group of men at the bottom who aren't. And this is not a cultural thing.
Of course it's not. So why for the last 8 minutes have you been talking about these studies? You went from talking about 2008 to 2010 and now you're saying this is not a cultural thing. So you brought up feminism for what reason? This is not cultural, it's biological. Why'd you bring up these studies, and why'd you bring up feminism? This is just how things will always work and have always worked.
This has happened throughout history.
Biological, evolutionary.
Evolutionary. Mubarak the Bloodthirsty, 888 children. You know what I'm talking about, right? From Morocco, read about him. This whole idea. Now here's the thing. Here's where I differ from a lot of guys. Okay, not all of them, but that
including this motherfucker.
28%. My whole thing is, don't hate the game. Get in the fucking gym.
It ain't about being in the gym really, because if you get your shit together, you don't have to be like some chiseled stud. I see a lot of guys with kind of just average bodies, with really good looking women and kids, the whole nine. You know, but yeah, the gym obviously wouldn't hurt, just as far as health standpoint, but you get more attention from dudes. Let's just be honest. Anyone that has like a good physique, more dudes are approaching you about what you eat, how much protein you have, how much can you bench, all that bullshit.
Get in the game, be a player.
Correct.
And not an average dude.
No.
You were just complaining. This is why he's a fucking grifter, and you should not listen to this fucking scumbag. You were just complaining about how the average dude isn't getting ass, but now with someone that has like some testosterone says, hey, instead of getting mad at the game, make yourself better. Now he's saying don't be an average dude. So do average dudes deserve get ass or not? Because you were just complaining about how they weren't.
Know that if this top 10% is the one that's winning, do everything in your power short of death to get there. How much does it mean to you to get in that top 10%? Nobody loves women more than me. Women are the way they are. You can tell me women like status and like guys who are taller than shorter. Have I gone to a party, been with a hot girl, and she walks off with some dude who's a male stripper? Of course it's happened to me.
Chalk it up to the game, dog. Don't get mad. Don't get jealous. Do not get jealous ever, fellas. That is that is one of the worst emotions you could have.
Sucks. Doesn't make me hate women. It's just evolution.
You got swooped on.
I got swooped on. So you know what? I'm gonna hit that motherfucking bench press next week, and I'm
wish you were easier. Wish you were better.
Yeah, wish you were
No, you actually do wish it was easier. Fucking loser.
better. Don't wish it was easier, because it's not easier. If you wish it was easier, that's when I see these dudes, like I said before, moving to Panama, moving to fucking Eastern Europe, and they're just I don't want to give up.
All right, first off, I'm gonna have to disagree with this guy on that, because That's stupid advice. If you have the finances to pick up and move your life to another country, second, third world country, whatever, still live well above the average person there, and attract a hot woman that isn't as much of a headache, why the fuck wouldn't you? He says he doesn't want to give up. It's not about giving up. It's about taking the path of least resistance. And you'd have to be a fucking idiot not to want to do that. So these women that you just were calling feminists and all this other shit, you're gonna sit there and be a circus clown for them. You're gonna go put yourself through hell to take on a headache. That's what you're saying. When you could be that same guy, but have a much more appreciative woman by your side in another country, and you're saying no. You got to be out your goddamn mind. That was just something really stupid that he just said.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And so, as I was saying before, when you look, I've done several shows on the GSS study. When you look at those stats, you have to correlate them against other stats that really, like you say, okay, it was 2008 to 2018. What else happened during that time? Well, if you look at how college enrollment rates have declined.
Okay, this I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but he actually attributes men dropping out to because they're not having as much sex.
What the gender differential was, it was like 68 or almost 70% women and 30% guys were graduating with a master's or above, like a doctorate as well. And I thought, well, that kind of like puts things into a different perspective. It's one thing if you're going in there and you're enrolling.
Yeah, so basically his point is that I think it's 60% of women are in college and 40% of the people in college are men. But it actually drops when it comes to graduation, that 70% of women graduate and only 30% of men graduate, something like that. And he literally attributes that to them not having sex. So let's just listen to this stupidity.
Did you complete it? Well, there's 60% women and 40% men. All right. Did you go through it? Okay, you went through 4 years of college. You went through 8 years
men are
of college.
dropping out.
Are dropping out,
Wow.
exactly. So you have to look at those stats and then compare that versus the same time period as we see an increase in guys not getting laid.
First and foremost, men not having sex in high school and college has always been a thing. If you're old like me, you remember the movie Revenge of the Nerds. That shit came out in like the 80s. It was about a bunch of nerds that couldn't get any ass, but they were smart as fuck. Okay? It's more about the climate, the social climate on college campuses. The pushback and just the kind of ostracization of straight men and how they're treated on these campuses. That, I'm pretty sure, is a way bigger factor to them dropping out than them not having sex. Nerds not having sex has always been a thing. Okay? They're not as attractive as the fucking college, as the football guy. It is what it is. Okay?
Right? And then you have to look at other like sort of demographic cohort studies that go along with that. And this is straight out of Dr. David Buss's book, okay? 80% of men are deemed unattractive.
Okay, yeah, so basically they're rehashing everything up here. Basically, there's guys at the top, guys at the bottom, blah, 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 the same old complaining bullshit. And obviously from here to here, he has no solutions as usual. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts on the comments below about what I've said. Do you think men actually have power? Or do you think that we're helpless little gnomes, under the power of women, and that they're just overpowering us and we have no control, like how he thinks? Or do you think that, we can regain, some of this power if we were to take it? And do you think that if these women just started banging sandwich workers, that all their depression would go away? But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm out. Gotta hit the gym. Peace.